Now let me demonstrate using a third-party module for your app by showing you how you might use the Express module to give your device a web interface, actually a little API. We looked briefly at how easy Node makes it to create a web server and how easy the Express library makes it to create a website framework or an API. Let's apply that here and see what it would take to create a web server on your device that exposed an API to other devices on the network. We'll start again at the shell, and I'm going to create a directory called My API. We'll move into that. Of course, it's empty. We'll go ahead and create our app.js file. We'll do an npm init and run through the defaults. Those are fine. And then we want that gulp file.js. So once again, we'll copy this from one of our existing applications. There we go. That's a good place to start. And let's open this up in code. Get ourselves a good development environment. Now let's go modify that gulp file. We've got our deploy task. The only thing we really need to set here is the name of our project. We'll call it My API, and just like that, we're done with gulp file. Now let's jump back to the console and install, first of all, our dev dependencies, which are gulp and Candyman. Save dev. There we go. Now let's install our Cylon dependencies. So we are going to be using the Edison, of course, so we need this Intel IoT. We also need the GPIO and the I2C. And in this case, we're going to be using Express as well. Let's save all of these as dependencies for our application and jump back into Visual Studio Code. Now if we look at the package.json file, you can see that we do have gulp and Candyman as dev dependencies. Let me go to app.js, and here what we want to do is write kind of a mashup of our Express code and our Cylon code. Let's start with that Cylon example that we did a little bit ago, just to blink the light. So I'm going to go to File, Open. I'm going to go into the Blink Cylon, and I'm going to open the app.js file. So let's start here. I'll go ahead and close that one down and open our app.js file and paste that in. But we're also going to want to do an Express app, and the way I like to do this is to just go ahead and declare my app here and then require Express and go ahead and instantiate that right away. So this creates an app for me, and then I store that app here. Now in my work function, instead of just calling Edison LED toggle, we're going to call Edison LED turn on or turn off. These are the two methods that we want to call. The rest of this is the same. So the connection is correct, the device that we're going to be connecting to is correct. We're just going to define an API route for turning this light on and define another for turning it off. We'll go ahead and do that in here. So I can say app get. This is the way you do it in Express. You define a get, which is going to be an HTTP get method. And this is going to be for when somebody does a get at API/light on. Whenever they do that, we have the opportunity to run this function. This function does whatever we want it to do. Now we do another one that is an app get API light off, and that one should run this here, and this is going to run whatever we want it to. So for the light on, we want to turn the Edison on. That's going to be a method call. We'll copy that and paste it down here, turning that to off. And now whenever somebody does a get request to this route, this function should run, which should turn on our Edison's LED. And likewise if they call light off. All right, I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now I'll jump back to my command line and gulp deploy that. Let me send this window over here. Start a new window over here, and in this one we're going to SSH to TweetMonkey. If I do a list now, I should see that My API app exists. So let's go into My API. I have app.js and package.json file. By now you should have guessed that what we need to do is do an npm install, but we can use this production flag because we have no need right now for gulp and Candyman. All we need is the Cylon packages and the Express package. In fact, you can always jump into your node modules folder. Let me try that again. And in fact, it did not install those, and I'm not exactly sure why. Let's type, let's cat package JSON. And we still don't have those dependencies, so it's like the save didn't work. I may have done something wrong with the save on my device. So let's do that again, and this will help you with understanding anyway. Let's do a npm install. This was the Cylon Intel IoT, Cylon GPIO, and Cylon I2C along with Express, and we want to save those. And then once those are done installing, we're going to jump into, or at least type out, the package JSON file. And there we go. Must have done something wrong the last time. Now they exist. Let's go do another gulp deploy to get those out to our device. Notice how easy it is to get those out to the device. That's really important. Let's go ahead and type out this package JSON file. It's not found yet because it's not quite done copying. Not quite done copying. Oh, actually, it is done copying. I'm just using the Windows command instead of the Linux command for typing that out. There we have our dependencies. So now this should work just fine. All right, now we're done installing that. Now we've got our node modules folder. Let's jump into that and see that we have Cylon, GPIO, I2C, the Intel IoT, and Express all brought right into there. Now, if we look at our app.js, we see, keep doing that. If we look at our app.js, we'll see that we have the correct Express and Cylon code for implementing this API. So let's simply do node app.js, and this should run. Now, interestingly enough, there's one thing that I forgot that caused this to drop back out to the command line. Hopefully you've got sharp eyes and you're able to tell what it is. But I'll just tell you that what I forgot to do is tell this API that we want it to listen. We'll go ahead and let that listen on, say, port 3000. That's no problem. We'll save that, go back to our command line and do a gulp deploy. Let that go out. And once we cat the app.js file and see the listen command in there, then we know that it has, there it is. So now we know that that's been copied out, so we're ready to node app.js. And now this is going to break in the working function because now we have an Express web server that's running. So it's going to block the thread and it's going to keep it in the working state. And let me clear my left screen. In the screen on the left, I have my local machine. Now this local machine and the remote device, the Intel Edison, are both on the same network, and so I do have access to it. So what I'm going to do is just do a curl at http://tweetmonkey is the name of the device, local, and we used port 3000, so I need 3000 there, /API/light off. Now let me tell you that what I'm looking at on my desk right now is an Edison with the pin 13 light on. So this should turn it off, and in fact it just did. All right, now let's go ahead and break that and let's do the same command but with on, and in fact the light just came on. So what we've done here is we've given an API to our robot so that any other device on the same network is able to call into those API functions and cause it to do whatever functionality we want to extend. All right, now that wraps up this module using node modules to make your programming simple. Now that we've covered the Internet of Things, the devices, and the software, we're ready to dive into some examples. We're going to start with a really simple example, and I do mean simple. The code for the example in the next module will fit on a single page with room to spare. There's only a single component hooked up to the device, and yet I think it does a really good job of showing just how a little bit of IoT can make for a whole lot of fun.